Hi, I'm Judith Dreyer. Thank you for joining me for this podcast series At the Garden's Gate presents The Holistic Nature of Us. My intent is to take us, you and I, into a better understanding of the concepts behind our holistic nature and how that ties directly to the holistic nature of the world around us. How can we connect the dots in practical ways that we are nature and nature is in us? I will be featuring authors and educators, practitioners and others whose passion for this earth helps us create bridges. We'll see what's trending, what's relevant to our world today, not just for land use, but to connect the dots between ourselves and nature. It's time for practical action and profound interchange so our natural world is valued once again. Today, I am so delighted to introduce you to Susan Leopold. She is the Executive Director of United Plant Savers. It's not only a spectacular and special organization, they're doing incredible things for saving our plant species. Susan, welcome to The Holistic Nature of Us. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, we're kicking this one off about you and your work with United Plant Savers. Can you tell us more about the organization?
Sure. The organization was really founded by Rosemary Gladstar and a group of herbalists and wildcrafters, growers, those that were starting herb companies that were gathering at the International Herb Symposium that Rosemary Gladstar had started, which takes place every other year in Boston. And it's there that they birthed the idea of forming United Plant Savers because they were seeing dramatic decline in these plants due to the increased popularity and rebirth of herbalism happening in North America. We will be celebrating our 25th year in 2019. So the organization is approaching, 25 years of advocating for the plants, and we are the only organization that has this mission, which makes us extremely unique and relevant and very important.
It is. I remember its beginning. I've been a member of United Plant Savers off and on since its inception, and I'm always inspired by the work people are doing, not only in our country but around the world, and how United Plant Savers has been the driving force for saving our plant species. Perhaps you could address the trends that you see in the plant world, and how does United Plant Saver monitor that?
It's very difficult because the herbal industry is kind of secretive about where they source plants and how many plants are being traded or put into herbal products. I will say this, that having this job for almost 7 years, I really do believe that herbalism provides a gateway into understanding plants in our ecosystem. And so my hope for herbalism and those that are getting into holistic medicine, that they then become environmentalists and activists for our environment, because they're understanding the role of plants in the ecosystem. And what's most important is that if you are a consumer of herbal medicine, you should really know where that plant comes from and how it grows in its ecosystem. And then it becomes very obvious what is appropriate and non-appropriate use. And so in that regard, I have to say the biggest kind of trend or concern at this moment is really the essential oil industry, that people are buying these essential oils, which take tremendous amount of plant material to distill into these oils, and several of the plants are endangered. And one plant specifically that UPS has taken on is the endemic Hawaiian Sandalwood that grows on the Big Island, Santalum paniculatum, and there's very little bit of this tree left. The trees that are being cut down for the essential oil industry are hundreds of years old, and they're just not reproducing in the wild anymore. So the use of Hawaiian Sandalwood is really, the extinction of this tree, and I don't think many people who use essential oils are even aware of these cases. So that's one example. I would say the other concerning trend, and people reach out to us with their concerns, and then that helps us monitor. Many companies have reached out about the overharvesting of chaga and the way chaga is being harvested in the wild. And so you see this trend in conscientious companies who are making, they're living off of chaga products, are transitioning into growing chaga in a greenhouse environment where they're just growing the mycelium and using that in the medicine or the product instead of using wild harvested chaga. So those are two kind of topics or examples of some of the causes we try and gather the information and then share it with our membership.
Well, that's, I would think, a really pressing issue. The essential oil industry trying to do things natural, not using synthetic perfumes, which a lot of people are sensitive to, but the essential oils, they're not. We have a tremendous growth in yoga centers, meditation centers, holistic health centers, especially here in the Northeast. I can only address my neck of the woods. There's a ton of them around here in New England. And essential oils is key to part of their practices and teachings. But I don't know if people are aware of how endangered sandalwood is.
And this year, Young Living was taken to court for international violations. They were illegally harvesting rosewood from the Amazon. They were claiming it was another plant, intentionally importing it into the country illegally. And they have single-handedly pretty much wiped out rosewood. And when you look at the case, the court case, you have employees writing in saying we're harvesting this tree to extinction, and they continued to do so. They were fined, found guilty, and I don't think they've really suffered any repercussions for just an incredible international violation. And I would say, if you asked me as a activist and for the planet, the number one wildlife crime is illegal forestry. And Young Living intentionally for a decade illegally harvested rosewood out of the Peruvian Amazon. So that's just one example, and it's amazing that they were even prosecuted. And they're like you mentioned, people are allergic to synthetics, but what people don't realize is that the essential oil industry is unregulated by the government. So no one's testing those oils, and a good percentage of them are not being distilled through natural steam distillation. Chemicals are being used in the extraction of these plants. So, adulteration is a big issue in the essential oil world. And I think I'd like to commend the American Botanical Council, which did a wonderful report on this, and they're working on setting standards that hopefully companies will agree to comply with to address the adulteration in essential oils. So I really tell people, about this whole multi-level marketing thing, and, the incredible use of people with essential oils. There are a few really good companies. You should really know your company that you're buying your oils from and ask questions about where it's being distilled, how it's being sustainably harvested, and be really knowledgeable of the life cycle. United Plant Savers has an at-risk tool on our website. We can link to it, and it just asks a series of questions and then gives a numerical assessment of how at risk it is to use that plant in a commercial setting.
Well, that's interesting. I know that I always refer to the species at risk tab on United Plant Savers for my classes to give people a more up-to-date list of what they're using. And now I'm seeing that you have the tool, which is great. There's folks here that do work with, I'm sure we all know people who work with multi-level marketing companies in the essential oil industry. And my concern is, do they really reveal what they do? Do they really have a transparency in their harvesting practices?
The only thing we can do is demand it as consumers. Okay. Because there is no regulation, there is nobody overseeing. They're not considered an herbal supplement, so they don't apply to all those FDA laws, which are, really helping to provide more accountability and transparency in herbal supplements. But essential oils, it's the Wild West. That's why they can get away with saying you should put these oils in your water and just crazy stuff. Essential oils are just really concentrated and are amazing, but should be used in complete reverence. And, I also would like to bring up, in South America, there's amazing healing tradition of using aromatherapy, but with the plants, gathering the plants, steaming them, creating herbal baths with flowers. All these things are totally accessible to us that we can harvest from our backyard and use in our daily practice, but we don't need to buy these essential oils. I mean, so I encourage people to learn about how they can grow aromatic plants in their garden. They can harvest them. They can steam them. They can create hydrosols in their home. Access the plants in the most holistic way and not, be buying essential oils that take just a tremendous amount of plant material, or if you do, use it very as if it's super sacred, So anyways, that's my rant on essential oils. But I will say this, I believe it's a gateway to the plant world, and people are embracing it really quickly. So how can we use this as an opportunity to reach people?
I agree with you. I think organizations like United Plant Savers, as the I don't know what the right word is, but it's behind the herbal industry. The herbal industry began with people wanting to get back to more of natural medicine. I know for myself, I'm trained in Western medicine, but I had this incredible passion to understand what was in my backyard and how to use it. But what the responsibility we have is what is our responsibility to sustainability? What is our responsibility to future generations? And you and I both know that when the herbal industry really kicked into high gear, I want to say probably in the 90s, we started to see tremendous populations being depleted, one of which was American ginseng, golden seal, bloodroot. Some of those plants were almost wiped off the face of the Appalachian Mountains, if I have the stories correct. And United Plant Savers is trying to regrow some of those populations and create a consciousness or a mindfulness about our responsibility when we use them. Years ago, I got from one of the founding herbalists of United Plant Savers, I got some golden seal. And do you know I still have it? I treat it like gold. I know it's not as potent as it was, but it still has that bitter smell that's unique to golden seal, and I use it very sparingly. And I have it so my students can actually see what it looks like. But that product is at least 25 years old. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, to me, it's like you said, it's about having respect and reverence for our plant populations, and a partnership.
Right?
Creating that partnership.
I mean, we work a lot with the Appalachian herbs. We have our sanctuary in southern Ohio, just south of Athens, that members can come and visit, and we have an extensive population of golden seal, and we've been doing the root giveaway to our members, for a long time. So I hear lots of wonderful baby golden seal stories, and I love those. But especially now, what's going on in Appalachia is we all have heard about the opioid epidemic. People are, meth, all these things have plagued Appalachia, and then the decline of the coal industry, the economic situation is kind of dire, and the first thing that people go to harvest to get by are plants. So the plants in Appalachia are experiencing a lot of pressure. The pressure has increased, not decreased, and a lot of these plants most of them are being harvested from the wild. And just down the road from the sanctuary, our neighbor, people who were addicted to drugs had parked on the side of the road and gone into our woods and just hauled out trash bags of ramps. And luckily the police knew their vehicle, and they were actually apprehended, and we got the ramps, and we were able to bring them back into the forest and plant them. But the wild food, the ramps, the fiddleheads, these are being hit hard because people who are, desperate, it's an easy thing to go and grab and get money. And ginseng is also almost like an underground economy in Appalachia. The biggest ginseng bust happened 3 years ago in West Virginia, and it was actually a heroin bust. And then when they went to break in, they found an insane amount, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of wild ginseng. Oh, so the dealer can just trade pills for ginseng, so that the work that we're doing is more important than ever. And we're a membership-based organization. We have 3,000 members. That supports the majority of our basic costs. But if we had 10,000 members, we could be doing amazing plant work. And so, $35 is not a big ask, and there's got to be 10,000 plant-loving people out there that can spare $35 a year. And it would be it would just take what we could do and times it, tenfold. So we're in 2019, we're celebrating our 25th. And we're working on all of our planning now, and we really hope we can use this 25th celebration to honor the whole history of all the people who've, put their heart into United Plant Savers, our board members over the years, our past executive directors, our members, our botanical sanctuaries. And we want to, get 10,000 members in 2019 so that we can continue to do this work.
And it's so timely. I mean, if the plants needed us, they need us today.
Today, absolutely.
And they need us to really support organizations like yours that are making a huge difference and monitoring things like what's happened into our Appalachian Mountains. What most folks don't realize, and again, I found this with my students, they had no idea the plant culture in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, sang is kind of like the mountain term for ginseng, and it was a huge source of revenue for very, very poor people. So there's a culture there about going into the wild, getting plants, getting money, for survival. And that requires education to change that mindset. And I think United Plant Savers is doing a huge, huge job on that level.
Yeah, and I'll add, one of the things that I've come to realize with this job is that a majority of our medicinal plants come from mountainous regions. And within those mountainous regions, we need those forest ecosystems. And those forest ecosystems and higher elevations are they're on the front lines of climate change. That's where, climate change is really being felt in the most dramatic way. So how we conserve these plants and are aware of what's going on in their ecosystem is critical to us. It's critical to them. So we work a lot in Colorado, monitoring OSHA populations and working with the Forest Service to develop sustainable harvesting of OSHA. That's, one example of another mountainous important medicine that is antiviral and is just so unique. We don't want to lose this plant, And with our Appalachian, I tell people, even when they were exploring plants in the 1800s, early botanists were writing about the fact that Appalachia is a hot spot of medicinal plant biodiversity found nowhere else in the world. So we have an incredible legacy and treasure in our Appalachian Mountains with all the just abundance of medicinal roots. So that's another, we should really take pride in that and be conscientious. Our cohosh, our bloodroot, our ginseng, our golden seal. I mean, it just goes on and on. So
I agree with you. And the only way we can do that is by getting the word out and keep getting the word out and keep getting the word out, which is what United Plant Savers is doing. Well, do you happen to have a couple of tips for our listeners, something that they could apply today? The first thing I would say is $35 for membership is easy for most of us. It's not difficult, but if people can't do that, even $5 to your organization contributes to the work that you're doing. Do you have any other tips?
Yeah, and I would add, the become educated and empowered, because the more you know, the better decisions you can make. And even if you can't afford a membership, we offer all of the information we produce free online. So you can go online. If you become a member, we'll mail you the Journal of Medicinal Plant Conservation. But you can go on our website and look up the Journal of Medicinal Plant Conservation and download all of our old issues, read the articles, explore the website. And then the second thing is the tool. Use the tool. Walk yourself through the tool with the plant you have in mind, and it just gets you thinking about important questions, like how does the plant reproduce? What part of the plant are you harvesting? What does the effect of that harvesting have on the plant population? Are you harvesting the leaves? Are you harvesting the roots? Really know what part of the plant is used in the medicine and where that plant grows in its natural habitat. And then make a conscientious decision about whether you feel like it's appropriate to use that plant. Is that company, do you feel like that company is sustainably harvesting that plant? Ask that company the question if you have concerns. And then the most empowering thing is become a botanical sanctuary. We have a network of botanical sanctuaries around the country. You can go onto the website, click on the state that you live in, and then you can see what botanical sanctuaries are registered in your state. Anybody can become one. It's a process of asking yourself, what plants do you have on your property? How could you increase the biodiversity of your property? How can you share that knowledge with your community? There's no right or wrong answers. It's just becoming an active part in our mission.
Well, I think I'd like to just interject your website again. It's unitedplantsavers.org, and they have a great toolbar on the left of their homepage, and you can access all this information there, including membership, the assessment tool, and the Botanical Sanctuary Network. So I think I want to remind our listeners again about that. Secondly, the Botanical Sanctuary, I had the chance to go to Rutland, Ohio, and kind of hang out there for a couple of days, and I was so impressed, and I wanted to get there because of the talking forest that is included in the trails. You can actually walk on these beautiful mountain trails, and you can see your plants identified, including the trees, the shrubs, and the lower plants, on the forest floor. And it's a great way to educate yourself about what they look like and the environment that they grow in. So that Botanical Sanctuary also has been a powerhouse of information on golden seal specifically, and American ginseng. Do you have anything else to add? I see that you're going to be having a new teaching building. Is that correct?
Yep, we had a campaign last year to raise money, and we're building the first ever Center for Medicinal Plant Conservation, and it'll have small little museum area talking about the history of medicine in Appalachia, and then we'll have our office in there, a small herbarium that we hope to continue to add specimens to, and a teaching kitchen and a classroom.
That's exciting.
We're very excited about it.
Yeah, you should be. It's a great step for the work that you're doing. Could you tell our listeners more about the botanical sanctuaries around the country? These are just people many of them are people in their backyards. Some of them are practitioners. What else can you tell us about the Botanical Sanctuary Network?
Yeah, like I said, anybody's able to apply. So there's urban sanctuaries. There are people's backyards, there are farms, there are, different botanical gardens have become sanctuaries. It's a whole range. So I think it's very inspiring just to go on the website and read the sanctuary stories, and then we highlight those stories and the Sanctuary Network in our journal every year as well. And then we have a small grant program where we give grants up to $500 if you have a project you're trying to do with your botanical sanctuary. And then we advertise for the botanical sanctuaries. We'll post stuff about them on our Facebook page. And I also want to add that we have a free newsletter that you can sign up for on the website and be in the loop as far as all the educational events that we do every year. And then we also, let people know about other events that we think apply to the United Plant Savers mission.
That's great. I have to tell the listeners that as a member of United Plant Savers, I did apply for a grant for a unique project in my area. It was a children's youth garden, and we put in a medicine wheel where each place on the wheel, there were 12 tree stumps with a compass in the middle. The kids can learn orientation skills, totally set up to the 4 directions, and we highlighted with trail quality signs 12 either at risk or to watch plants that are native here to New England. We wanted to focus on that for education. The schools in the area bring kids around, and they do have Native American components in various levels of grammar school in particular, and including the high school. And United Plant Savers, again, was supportive of that, and it really helped our organization get more visibility in the community, especially for the summer programs that they run, summer camp programs for the children. And the kids love it. They love digging in the dirt. They love learning about the bugs. They are fascinated with the butterfly weed and milkweeds, and they see the monarch butterflies coming in, and they look at all the bee populations, not just the honeybees, just because of the diversity that's there in the landscape. And that's part of my mission, is to impress people how the true meaning of sustainability is to look at our land use practices so that it's sustained for future generations. Right now, what we've done is not sustainable. So overharvesting, as you mentioned, is not sustainable. Taking away plant species is not sustainable. And so there's consequences for that. And it's not just the plants, but if we can't support the insects, then we don't support the birds, and then we don't support the little critters, and then we don't support the big critters. And as Doug Tallamy says, before you know it, they're extinct. Something's extinct.
I love him. That is such a great book, Bringing Nature Home. I encourage everybody to read it.
I do too. I think it's great also. And he said you don't have to like nature, but we need nature.
Yeah.
We
right.
need nature.
We're diminishing the Earth's intelligence by forcing plants and animals and insects into extinction before their time.
Yes. Well, that's an interesting way of putting it. I hadn't thought of it that way. I feel that there is an incredible intelligence into the way this Earth operates, and we know from other traditions that everything that's in the outside world is a reflection of the inside world, and we still haven't made that connection in the holistic field. We're very well versed on the body-mind-spirit connection, but we haven't taken that and created a bridge that nature has what we need, that nature supports what we are. Instead, we just seem to disregard nature if we want to do something with it that suits our own needs and purpose. So, on that level, Susan, is there anything else you'd like to share? Again, United Plant Savers is unitedplantsavers.org for your website. Is there anything else you'd like to share with my listeners?
Yeah, just tune into United Plant Savers. It's an exciting time for us, and we're on fire right now. We're going to build this center. 2019 will be the year of the International Herb Symposium. That'll be, beginning of June, the end of June. We're doing a big Planting the Future event at Herb Farm in Oregon, and then that fall we'll be doing a big event in September at the Sanctuary. That's, anyways, on the horizon. So sign up for our newsletter. We're going to be making some big announcements to get people putting these dates on their calendar as we look to 2019.
Well, before we sign off, I just would like to spend a minute or two on the International Herb Symposium. It's such a collection of very, really credentialed and well-established herbalists in our community. I'm going to call the United States as our community. They come from all over the country and outside of the country with their specific expertise. But I was so impressed at how we've matured in the herbal industry.
Yeah, it's a wonderful event. Over 1,000 people gathered. I mean, it's unlike anything else out there, I think, for those that just want exposure. And I think the premise is, when Rosemary founded the International Herb Symposium, was to demonstrate that there is a diversity in how we can work with herbal medicine. It's not just one standard way. So she really has set the precedent for bringing in indigenous and just an array of practitioners and healers that use plants in just incredibly diverse ways.
You're right. She's been such a founding mother, hasn't she, to the herbal industry in some ways. I have such respect for that woman, and she walks her talk, as you do. And that's why I'm so honored to have you here as a guest on, the holistic nature of us. Anything else before we sign off?
No, I think that's it.
Well, I want to thank you for joining for me and my listeners at the Holistic Nature of Us. I hope all my listeners feel as inspired as I do by Susan's talk and her very practical advice. I know I do, and I want to thank you again, Susan, and my listeners for joining me today. This is Judith Dreyer, author of At the Garden's Gate book and blog. For more information, go to my website, judithdreyer.com. You will find information for this podcast as well as the transcript of this podcast available. And I like to end with a quote from Paul Hawken, environmentalist and author, who reminds us, sustainability, ensuring the future life on Earth, is an infinite game, the endless expression on behalf of all. So have a good day, everyone. Until next time, so long.